Microtransactions.
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 It does make you look cooler.
Microtransactions.
And it does make people jealous.
Microtransactions.
Y'all still bought it in secret.
Microtransactions. Let's talk about them.
Let me take you back to the 80s and 90s and ask you a question. You go down to the arcade to play Street Fighter 2 or 32 Ultimate Match. You insert your quarters or freedom bullets or whatever it is you Americans use as currency now that your society has collapsed, and you start playing. When you die, you get offered the chance to continue for a small fee. Is that a microtransaction? On face value, it looks like one, doesn't it? You have to pay to continue, and that's gating content. But it's not really a microtransaction, is it? You're paying to play, not to win or to gain advantage. Even if it was, it's the most ethical and mildest form of microtransactions that we have ever seen or will ever see again. Now, some of you might be thinking of some more modern monetization tactics that clearly take inspiration from arcade games like this. But first, I want to look at a recent example that I'm sure we are all familiar with.
We've all seen this comment. It's the most downvoted in Reddit's history. If you haven't, it's pretty safe to say you've heard about what it's referencing. In 2017, EA tried to make you pay 60 hard-earned Star-Spangled Shillings to buy the game, more if you went for pre-order bonuses, then generously offered the option to pay a simple 400 more to unlock Luke or Vader. Only one, mind you. If you wanted both of these incredibly iconic characters, you'd have to open up that wallet again. Filling out your entire hero roster would set you back nearly 2,000 Constitution coins. That's like $3,000 dues. Now, of course, you had the option to unlock the characters through gameplay, a mere 40 hours per character. Real gamers could knock that out in a day, but for all the casuals out there, this was pretty insulting. Naturally, they reversed course once the backlash hit, and there was more to it than my quick explanation, but you get the idea. They tried to milk a game they were already selling for AAA prices for everything it was worth, and only backed down when they were rightfully lambasted for it. This was an insidious, greedy strategy that not only sparked an international debate about the ethics of gaming monetization, but set a dangerous precedent for so many other publishers moving forward. Not that you would get called out for going too far, which you will, but that people will still buy your game. EA may have backed down, but plenty of others don't, despite the increasing levels of scrutiny. They're still trying to push the envelope, still trying to squeeze those whales dry. So where exactly are microtransactions today? And how did we get there? Let's take a look at these predatory practices and examine the evolution of exploitation in the gaming industry.
There's some contention as to what constitutes the first appearance of microtransactions in video games. Some people mention Gauntlet from 1985, some people mention Double Dragon 3, the Rosetta Stone from 1991, but those are arcade games, not at-home experiences, and for the sake of this video, they don't really fit the descriptions. Without beating around the bush, the first example I could find from my research was Achaia Dreams of Divine Lands.
It was a text-based, multi-user dungeon, or MUD, and it launched in the same year that I did, 1997. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to have been the first instance of premium currency in an online game, meaning you could pay to skip a lot of grinding for gear. You could spend countless hours gaining credits to buy items in-game, or you could use your 16-digit cheat code and get those credits instantly. Well, back then it was a little slower than that, but you get the idea. Now, I understand that Dreams of Divine Lands was free to play, so they had to make money somehow, but a quick trip to the credits page shows something a little ridiculous. Are people really going to spend upwards of 1,000 real-world dollars just to buy items in a text-based game older than Google? I don't know. The answer is almost certainly yes, but technically you didn't have to spend a cent to participate in every single aspect of the game. You still don't. Dreams of Divine Lands is running to this day, so you can hop on in your browser. And that's the freemium model right there, and we'll get back to that term later on, but I'll assume we're all familiar with the concept. A free-to-play game supports itself by offering cosmetics or conveniences to players who want to pay for them. Insane that the very first example of this phenomenon is already setting an absurd standard for how much they're charging, but why not go for gold, right? At the very least, a casual player had low incentive to spend big, and the game was free to play. an understandable system, but even going back 28 years, we can already see the seeds of a multi-billion-dollar whale milking machine being planted. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Dreams of Divine Lands may have been the first, but the ones that came after were the real trendsetters. MapleStory, a 2D side-scroller RPG, released in 2003 with an in-game system that mimicked the wildly popular Japanese gachapon vending machines, where you put money in to get a random toy. It works in a similar way in MapleStory. You buy the premium currency NX to buy gachapon tickets, which give you a random item with varying rarity. Obviously, if there's an item you were going for in the pool, then it may take you several more than several tries to get the one you want. A lot more convoluted than just buying the item from an in-game shop, and a lot more lucrative. So, these are just loot boxes. It's pretty plain and simple. There are small distinctions you could make between different types of these mechanics, but gacha games are just loot box games. In MapleStory, $1 United States dollar gets you 1,000 NX. This conversion rate is constant. You can't get a better rate by spending more, it's always 1 to 1,000. So how much does a gachapon ticket cost? You can get 1 for $1 or 11 for $10. Okay, that's our benchmark. Obviously, these figures will change depending on where you live and your currency, but 11 tries at that piece of gear or cosmetic item for $10 seems fine. Don't look at how many items are in the pool and it even seems fair. Hey, I said don't look at that, we're not there yet. Also, not everything is as harmless as cosmetic items. Make no mistake, MapleStory is pay to win. So I mentioned cosmetics, not makeup. I'm not an expert on that and I don't want to get whomped by James Charles or something. No, I'm talking about cosmetic items in video games. Much cooler. Now, if you've seen my DLC video, then you'll know I talked about cosmetics and skins in that video too, but I do generally consider them more microtransactions than actual content, so they firmly belong in this video too. If you haven't watched that video, then please go and do so right now. Pause this one if you have to. It's very important to the chronology of this video that you watch that one first. Folks, we got 'em. Cosmetic items can be traced back to... Oh my Todd, not again. I swear, I tried to not bring it up this early into the video. I wanted to give you all a break. You've heard it too many times. You've been through it before. I've been through it before on this fucking channel. Do I even need to go through this one? Okay, fine. Speedrun. In 2006, Todd Howard decided Oblivion players needed to be able to deck out their horses but wanted to make some money for their hard work making exactly 2 assets, so charged $2.50 for horse armor. Then you had to go to this orc lady to buy in-game currency too. Makes no sense, did basically nothing for you, and supposedly started the huge wave of in-game cosmetics for decades following. In-game cosmetics are pretty self-explanatory. They're visual items that have no impact on gameplay. Many examples of skins are earned through gameplay. Jedi Fallen Order ponchos or lightsaber parts, Call of Duty gun paints, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart skins. What I'm interested in today, however, is the skins you do have to pay for. I looked everywhere to find an example earlier than horse armor, but I couldn't find anything concrete. I know there are games like The Legend of Mir or Nexus TK Kingdom of the Winds or even some MUDs that may have had some cosmetic microtransactions, but I couldn't find examples that I could actually point to in this video. Please, for the love of Todd, I'd love to be proven wrong in the comments, but this is as good a starting point as any, even if it's not technically the first. $2.50 for your beautiful, resplendent, essential armor for your frighteningly realistic horse. Not bad. So, an article from Zendel, Maya, and Balu split microtransactions into 3 broad categories: pay to win, loot boxes, and cosmetics. That's a good start, but for this video, I think I would add one in just to cover them all. I think our categories should be pay to win, pay for convenience, loot boxes, and cosmetics. Though we've already talked about it a little bit, and we will talk about it more, I don't consider in-game or premium currencies to be a category of its own. In-game currencies are predatory in their own ways, but they're always in conjunction with one of these other categories. Otherwise, what are you paying for, right? You've got to at least get something for your money, even if it's just some colored pixels. Customizing the look of your character is a staple in so many gaming genres. Whether it's changing gear or gear appearances in RPGs, changing a hero skin in a MOBA, or choosing the perfect outfit in a fashion simulator, people want to differentiate their aesthetics in-game. For those who haven't seen my DLC video, I feel pretty neutral about skins. In fact, depending on their implementation, I feel pretty positive. So let's jump straight in with some negative then, shall we? I know, we're back on the horse armor again, but I got the footage, so I'm gonna use the footage, okay? This is basically the first example, or effectively the first example if it's not actually, and it's already dumb in so many ways. Not a good start for paid cosmetics. Firstly, Oblivion is not a free game. You have to buy it, then you have to buy the horse armor. This is the only way to get it. Second, and I can't believe I have to say this, it's armor for your horse. I'm willing to bet most players don't even use horses most of the time. It's such a nothing DLC, and I hope you could hear my air quotes there. If they'd bundled it in with one of the other location downloads from the start, it would have been fine. It would have been weird and quirky, but it wouldn't have become a meme the way it has. That being said, it was only $2.50, and as an introduction to the category, at least it's not draining you dry. Let's move on. Everyone knows about Dota 2. It's an iconic part of the MOBA genre, and for great reason. Successor in name to the Warcraft 3 original, Dota 2 regularly gets over 500,000 concurrent players nearly 12 years after release, with a top count of over 1.2 million. Those are insane numbers, probably helped by the fact that it's free to play. Also, all the heroes are free from the very start. That's sick. I'm bad and I haven't played in a decade. Please don't judge my gameplay. I'm sorry. So, Valve have to make money somehow. Okay, good one. But you know what I mean. They have to make money specifically on Dota 2. So, once upon a time, they offered hero skins, courier skins, and even alternate announcers in their store. Their monetization model has since changed, but this was an understandable, reasonable model. To the best of my knowledge, they charged varied prices, but nothing too ridiculous. That's a little different now on unofficial sites. Don't check the prices on those. Hey, don't check the prices on those. Though even $20 is a hefty fee for a single skin for a single hero. You could buy Mass Effect Legendary Edition 3 times over when it's on sale for that price. Or Balatro. Just buy Balatro, it's so fucking good. In any case, it's not extorting you or incentivizing you beyond looking cool, but that's just my 2 cents. Okay, so I said their model has since changed. Yeah, it's worse now. There are skins on offer for almost every hero over $100, sometimes several hundred. What the fuck happened, Valve? You have all the money in the world. Why did you need to do this? I promise this isn't the last time this type of thing will come up, but let's move on. Fortnite follows a similar model. It's free and it offers cosmetic items in the in-game store. Unfortunately, you have to buy V-Bucks to buy skins, but they're similarly priced to Dota 2. People may take issue with the price of skins, but on the whole, I take bigger issue with the V-Bucks pricing. They try to get you to spend more by providing extra value in the exchange rate, but I think it's a bit fucked to try to get kids to pay $120 for an in-game currency that they spend on skins. And yeah, I know it's not just a kids game, but they are absolutely marketing to kids. That's a lot of mum's credit card money. That's where it becomes a little more predatory. Not only is Fortnite capitalizing far more on trends in pop culture and FOMO, they price their packages so that you have to spend more than you should just to get the skins you want. This is a damn sight worse than horse armor. Let's up the ante, or should I say up the RP. For those of you not familiar, I'm sorry for introducing you to League of Legends, which uses Riot Points as a premium currency. Again, there's a layer of anti-consumer pricing in the way of how much RP you get for real-world money, and would you look at that? You can drop over $100 here too. Great. The largest package will net you around 13,000 RP depending on where you're located. So, how many skins can you buy with that? How much are skins worth in League of Legends? Well, it depends. There are different tiers of skins, all the way from the very basic chroma for the lowliest of the proletariat, to ultimate and sort of beyond for the bougiest of the bourgeoisie. I think that's how you pronounce it?
Bourgeoisie.
Fuck yeah. You can get lesser skins for under 1,000 RP, which you'll have to pay 11 red, white, and freedom dollars to get. You can earn RP, but it takes a while. Ultimate skins, however, will see you spending upwards of $30. Sure, you might have some leftover RP to grab a few pleb skins too, but that's a lot of money to sink into a slightly more animated outfit for your favourite vampire fuckboy or fox girl. Speaking of Ari, let's stop fucking around. Riot offered a... Hold on, I've got to get the order of the words right here. An Immortalized Legend Collection. The real cream of the crop. The pièce de résistance. It cost 32,000 RP. Nothing shows off your in-game skills quite like dropping $250 on a skin. That's a full party's worth of Baldur's Gate 3 copies. That's more than a God of War Ragnarok Collector's Edition. That's like 50 Mass Effect Legendary Editions on sale, or 100 horse armors. If you wanted the full signature Immortalized Legend Collection, that would set you back 59,000 RP, or $450. How the fuck did we get here? This is a stupid amount of cash, no matter how you slice it. We'll get to the psychology and ethics of strategies like this in a bit, but how do you justify this at all? Is there any good argument for charging this much money for pixels that have no tangible gameplay effect, other than maybe the tightness of your trousers? I would argue no. For that price, this skin should make me the fucking overlord of all of League of Legends, or I don't know, transport me to a more enjoyable game. I know the game is free, but even so, this is an incredibly transparent money grab. So what if it weren't free? It's not such a revolutionary concept, seeing as we've already brought up horse armor about 15 times already. Hope you're enjoying these clips, by the way. I'm sure I'm not done using them. It's almost like that was a trial run. You'll pay $2.50 on top of the game price? Well, what about more? I bought and played Diablo 4 shortly after release. It was alright. It was a full price game though, so I wasn't exactly expecting there to be a real money cosmetics shop too. I mean, look, we've come far enough that I guess I wasn't not expecting it, but I still think it's scummy. I would still be sitting here inside your computer monitor complaining about this if the skins were actually $250 like Todd the Rod's mighty steed bling, but they're not. They're like $20. Wait, sorry, they're done through an in-game currency too? Okay, so some bundles are 1,000 platinum, which is actually $10, but plenty of them, most of them in fact, are more than 20, and they're class specific. $25 to deck a single character out, and more if I want the matching mount skin. This is, pardon my French, le fucked. It's sacre bonkers to charge full price for a game, then expect people to drop this much on individual class skins that, frankly, aren't even that good. It doesn't really matter, but the skins are mid as fuck. When you get right down to it, skins are an unnecessary personal luxury. I get that. I'm not buying any, no matter how good Mercy looks as a witch, but that doesn't really affect my outrage at some of these pricing models. There's a bit of a pass for free games, but there's a price and quality equation regardless. If you're paying actual money for a skin, it better be unique, it better be noticeable, and it better look good. I'd be mad at Diablo 4's lackluster skins even if the game was free, but since it's not, I'm beyond disappointed. League of Legends skins are miles better. They change more than just the character model, and some of them cost far less. But then they go and target whales with objectively overpriced shit like the Ari Signature exclusive limited bullshit pack, and we're back to square one. So why am I outraged at all when I've admitted that no one has to buy them? Let's think about it. Let's say you're playing a competitive game like League. You're playing it a lot. You're good, and you spend much of your time playing it, and you want to spruce up your champions more than what your free progress can get you. Since there's so many tiers of skins, it presents a new problem. If you're willing to buy a skin, then maybe you're looking to set yourself apart from your teammates and opponents. Maybe not, but let's play along and assume you are. With all of these skin tiers, the lowest is less than $5, and the highest is up around the $30 mark. Obviously, more people are going to have bought the $5 skin than the $30 skin. So, if you're wanting your champion to look as cool as it can, and more importantly, to stand out from the crowd, would you want the $5 skin or the $30 skin? There's that allure of an almost class divide-esque grandeur to having exclusive or limited edition skins that makes some people splurge more than you'd think on purely cosmetic items. This isn't a flawless or universal chain of logic, but it's a real phenomenon that publishers are capitalizing on to wring those sweet pennies from you. Also, they market for whales. People that spend are more likely to spend again, and a small percentage of players make for the largest portion of the pot. So if you market to your big spenders, you'll make big returns from them. I would never buy that $250 RE skin, but somebody probably would, so even if there were only a handful of them in comparison, you're still pocketing thousands. There are plenty more examples of expensive and low effort skins, but we'd be here all day if I was just listing them off. I don't count reselling to be really the same either. It's one thing to look at the marketplace for Dota 2 skins and see items listed for thousands of dollars. It's another to find those price tags in the actual in-game store. Now, this is what I would consider to be the most inoffensive category, the tamest. We're just dipping our toes into the ocean here, and already we've got price tags approaching $500,000. It's egregious now, but we're not really surprised, are we? If God Howard had dropped horse armor for an entire Benjamin, we'd be shocked. But that was nearly 20 years ago. There's no denying that players and publishers alike have got used to a highly inflated price for cosmetics, and while we may protest against it and recognize their greed for what it is, it's not going away anytime soon. I'm glad there are still games coming out that let you earn the full suite of skins in-game, but it's unfortunate that most, if not all of them, are single player. Take Spider-Man 2018 or Spider-Man 2. I had a ton of fun earning the different skins in those games. You unlock them all through simply playing the game. It incentivized me to play in different and often fun, interesting ways. If I'd had to pay for them, I wouldn't, but even if I did, it would have robbed me of the enjoyment of that challenge. I would have skipped fair chunks of the game just to get there. Speaking of skipping parts of a game for money, let's move on to something slightly more substantial than differently coloured pixels, shall we? We've already spoken about the first example of pay for convenience, which seems to be the first example of microtransactions in games anyway. Dreams of Divine Lands. We see examples of this category everywhere though. XP boosts in MMOs and MOBAs are probably the easiest examples. You're not paying to get to a level that free players can't obtain, you're just speeding up the progression process. This is probably useful for players who want to level up alternate or secondary accounts, especially in games like WoW, where you can boost a character to level 70 for $60 or 2 for $100. Look, that's pretty expensive, but if you want to play a class at max level with your mates and you've already sunk however many hours into it, maybe this is worth it. Perhaps a better example is League of Legends. I know, we just talked about it, but it's relevant here too. You can buy XP boosts that just make your leveling journey faster. Again, you're using RP, but you can probably get a fair XP boost for $20 or less. I'm totally fine with this. As I understand it, leveling doesn't take that long regardless, so this really is a convenience, not a roadblock disguised as one. Like I said earlier, it's free to play, so while there is an argument to be made for buying champions being a pay-to-win model, especially when you consider how long it would take to unlock every champion in the game for free, it's nowhere near as egregious as other examples we'll talk about. Not to sound like a League of Legends apologist or anything, but they do also have free champion rotations to ease this lack of variety a little bit. Another example of pay for convenience is paying for inventory space. Take Path of Exile, another free-to-play game where if you want the luxury of role-playing as a Diablo loot goblin, you'll have to buy some more stash space. While I don't love the way many of these options are quite restrictive, they're almost all $5 or less, and they are damn useful. I'm sure everyone sees where I'm going with this. The most benign and logical implementation of convenience microtransactions are in free games, where you're not crippled in-game by not buying them, and you're not crippled in real life by buying. Let's talk about the other cases. First up, paid games. Games aren't cheap, especially not these days. You could find yourself spending several $100s if you're after a collector's edition, or just a few days early access. So you buy a game. For the sake of argument, let's call this hypothetical game, I don't know, Battlefront 2. I know we've already gone over this example, but let's recap it again. If you want to play a powerful hero like Darth Vader, which will give you and your team a mechanical advantage, you can either grind nearly one Red Dead Redemption 2 story playthrough's worth, or you can pay a 40-60's worth of cold hard credit card for the convenience of having him now. There are so many problems with this that it's hard to know where to start. So the price was quickly reduced and the game's entire monetization and progression system has since been changed, but this is an absurd amount of money to ask for. Also, it's clearly not a convenience. Having access to heroes is a direct advantage. This is pay to win. I'm not even sure if this makes it better or worse, to be honest. Pay to win is a gross incentive for players to spend, but I guess you are technically getting something more for your money than an XP boost? Nah, I heard myself say it, and I've decided pay to win is worse. So why am I bringing this up in a convenience section if I've just admitted it's pay to win? Because on paper, the concept is the same. You actually bought these heroes through credits, an in-game currency you could either earn from progression or buy from the credit shop. It's just that you earned them so slowly that the only reasonable way for people to get even one of these heroes, let alone an entire roster, was to spend all of their free time grinding. It's not just an imbalance in who has access to the most power, it's a front-loaded imbalance that means for a significant chunk of time after the game launches, free players can't have access to that power. It may sound like you're just paying to skip a bit of a grind, but when you're paying that much to skip that many hours, it's entirely driven by greed. All of this would still plant it firmly in the pay-to-win category if it were a free game, but it's not. You already had to buy the game, then spend more money on something every player wanted. This is the first real example in this video of players being milked this hard by publishers. But it won't be the last. It blurred the lines between categories, so where is the line? Is every instance of pay for convenience in a paid game like this? I would argue no. See, live service games exist and survive despite what some recent examples might lead you to believe. Some definitely fall on the Battlefront side of the line, like Suicide Squad, which reportedly required approximately 1,000 missions to get full value out of the shitty battle pass, and even then the content was bad. So how about a similar monetization system in a better game? GTA Online has been around for more than 10 years and still gets regular updates to this day. It's the mother of all cash cows for Take-Two Interactive. It might not be as outwardly offensive as Battlefront 2, but that hasn't stopped GTA Online finding new and inventive ways to try and take your cash. They market to whales with luxury vehicles that cost mountains of in-game currency. They come out with new items, weapons, cars, and apartments quite often, so you have to keep updating your collection. Sure, you can earn this money in-game, but you almost have more of an incentive to pay than Battlefront. You're in a server with a dozen other people who almost definitely have all of these brand new shiny toys. So if you want to have fun in a race car, a hover bike, or some other ridiculous vehicle, then you'll find it much easier to pay for the convenience of not being such a poor homeless pleb. Now, because this is an online game, it introduces another problem: cheating. Since there's a large incentive to get the most money possible, and the best way to do that is to spend real money, which people will avoid if they can, people cheat all the time. This turns servers into absolute messes, effectively ruining the experience of non-cheaters. Even then, with so many cheaters, the whales still more than make up for it, spending millions upon millions every year. Which means that Take-Two and Rockstar have absolutely no reason to stray from this incredibly lucrative path when GTA 6 rolls around. Why would they? They'll already make a killing from the sales of the single-player game, so why the fuck wouldn't they choose to make another mint and keep the gravy train flowing? Now, some of you may be again wondering what differentiates this from pay-to-win, and you're right to question that. True, there's no real competitive aspect to it if you don't want there to be. There is no winning GTA Online, so technically it can't be pay to win. In practice, however, there is no difference. It's just the way that it's presented. Obviously, it's more palatable for publishers to point out that non-paying players can earn this stuff too. And in the case of GTA Online, that's absolutely true. It's not quite as much of a boring, repetitive grind as Battlefront 2, so it doesn't fall so squarely on that side of the line, but it absolutely opens up the playing field much more to hackers and griefers. I'm sure there are plenty of non-paying players that have earned enough cash to buy all the things they want, but I'm equally certain that every single one of them has encountered some cheaters along the way. Also, you had to buy the game in the first place. Stop milking your players like this. What about a paid multiplayer game that implements pay for convenience in a good way? I think it's important to include this example as a benchmark of an unobtrusive, genuinely optional monetization system that doesn't make you feel weaker for not engaging with it. Because it's so easy to get caught out labeling everything as equally bad or even just bad at all. Helldivers 2 is fun as fuck. It's had its fair share of controversies, but in the fight for freedom, who hasn't? My point is, you have to pay for the game, and then it wants you to pay more for various battle passes called war bonds. That's bad, right? I just spent ages talking about how that's bad. Nah, not really. Firstly, they're pretty cheap. A war bond pass will run you about $10 US. Secondly, there's a free war bond that you can progress through that will give you enough premium currency to purchase a war bond anyway, and it's not even a ridiculous grind. Sure, you have to complete a fair amount of missions to do it, but you're doing that to level up regardless, earning non-premium currencies to upgrade your ship and loadout. You won't really be focusing on the premium currency by itself. The gear and cosmetics offered in the war bonds are also not game-breaking, nor are they lending you a competitive edge over the other players. It's a co-op game, no matter what some fuckers might think, so if your team is powerful, you're powerful. There's no predatory incentive to spend, especially when earning it is so much goddamn fun. And if you do want to spend to unlock a war bond, it's a small investment that can tangibly change up the way you play the game. This is a true pay-for-convenience experience. Judging the other two against this good example is pretty easy. Arrowhead is asking for less money, made it easier for non-paying players to earn the rewards anyway, and made a game where it's not necessary to have the items regardless. It's a good reminder that while there are arguments to be made that monetization in games is getting worse, and we'll see some more recent examples later in the video, there are still plenty of developers and publishers who won't milk their customers for everything they're worth. That being said, we haven't gone through all the facets of this category just yet. Pay for convenience in multiplayer games can often end up Power Ranger mighty morphing into pay to win, but what about paid single player games? You can't pay to get an advantage over other players because, well, there are none, but what would pay for convenience even look like in a paid single player game? What would be the point? Great fucking question. Let's ask the usual suspects, shall we? Ubisoft have a reputation for copy-pasting their open-world formulas into every franchise they touch. This reputation is based on accurate observation. They seem to have done all their innovation around 2017 when they released Assassin's Creed Origins. Not only was this the start of a new direction for the AC franchise, but it was also the introduction of microtransactions into the series. You know, the famously single-player story-driven series. What could they possibly be selling? Skins, maybe? Small DLCs? No. Well, yes, but they were also selling gear, maps, mounts, all the same stuff you would expect from a free-to-play MMO or GTA Online. What the fuck? Why would you do this? Oh, okay, you had to buy them with Helix credits, which you can actually earn in-game. That's a lot better. It's still really weird that you can essentially pay to skip a bunch of the game you ostensibly want to play by just buying Helix credits with real money, but it could be worse. For example, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where in addition to all the stuff from Origins, you also have the privilege of being able to purchase an XP boost for the single player game you just bought. Oh yeah, and this can't be earned in-game like Helix credits. You just have to straight up open your wallet. What? This seems completely antithetical to the experience of, you know, playing a game. If your game is too long or you know leveling up is too much of a grind, then there are actually no stakes to making that shorter or easier. There's no competitive scene, there's no edge to be gained. Why would you admit that your game is better with an XP boost, then hide that behind a paywall? To be honest, I wouldn't really be okay with these even if you could own it all. When you ask nearly $100 for your game, then put your hand back out for another $100 for these stupid fucking Helix credits, that's insane levels of greed. At that point, just be like Bethesda and let us use the... hold on. Grave accent key. Open up console commands and get the items instantly that way instead. You're just letting players skip parts of your game for money. That's not just greedy, it's insulting, it's lazy, and it's borderline incompetent. I wasn't kidding when I said they haven't innovated since 2017, by the way. They're still using this freemium-looking Helix credit system to this day with Assassin's Creed Shadows. So yeah, I get it. These are all completely optional purchases that you genuinely don't have to engage with at all. They're not predatory, but they are extremely exploitative. I don't usually blame the consumer for buying microtransactions, but if you're buying Helix credits from the store and encouraging Ubisoft and other publishers to continue this, then respectfully, fuck you. So there's a big one that we haven't touched on yet. One that has probably occurred to all of you watching this video: mobile games. There are so many mobile games with so many different monetization models that they're hard to cram into one section, so I'll only cover some here. There are plenty of mobile games that use fairly unobtrusive models. Seriously, go on the App Store and you'll find countless single-player games that will show you a few ads once in a while asking for a few bucks to not do that. When I'm relaxing and infecting the entire human race in Plague Inc., I'm fine to have the little banner ad at the bottom, and I have no problem with them offering the chance to get rid of it for $5. It's literally the only microtransaction in the game, and the extra content you get is not essential. What begins to get a bit dicey is when they bombard you with 30-second ads every 60 seconds, making the game nigh unplayable if you don't spend. Or when the games are designed specifically around these pay-for-convenience microtransactions, such that you can't reasonably play without forking over. Yes, even for single-player games, this is not uncommon. There's been a rise especially in Match 3 games, and weirdly, Match 3 games specifically marketed as if they weren't Match 3 games. I'm sure you've all seen at least one Lily's Garden ad with the weird dramatic grandmother, or that Merge Mansions ad that Pedro Pascal did. They're all effectively the same game with a lazy veneer over the top. It's Candy Crush all the way down. My problem with these games is that you obviously start off doing the easy stuff, but eventually the levels get harder and harder, and naturally you have limited lives or attempts because this is a free mobile game, and you have to wait for your lives to refill. Or you could just spend some money, then you don't have to worry, right? You could try again right now. But then eventually you run into a level that's too hard no matter how many times you try. You just can't get all the candies or spiderwebs or fucking Tide Pods, whatever you get in these games, in the moves available, but you can pay for more moves. Or you can pay for power-ups to make it easier. So either these games end up as an exercise in frustration, or they're a money sink. Yeah, it's technically pay for convenience, you're not necessarily competing with anyone, so your winning is not at the expense of someone else, but is it really any different from pay to win at that point? These aren't the only examples, of course. There are plenty of base building or similar games that have egregious wait times you can pay to skip, or resource grinds you can pay to speed up. It's all the same. They're convenience items that you don't technically have to buy, but the game is designed to be really shitty and sometimes borderline unplayable if you don't. This is essentially the freemium model. You can play for free, but most of the actual features of the game are locked behind paywalls. So all in all, the pay for convenience category seems to be creeping closer and closer to that pay to win category. On paper, you should be paying for a more streamlined experience, and that payment should be optional. The problem is when the convenience is just a regular gaming experience, and the free option is artificially made worse with blatant incentives to pay. Many of the monetization strategies for these kinds of games are just as predatory, expensive, and ridiculous as all the others, especially mobile games, because the point I haven't mentioned yet is that it's just easier to buy stuff on your phone. Most likely, your banking info is already loaded onto it in some form, so you've probably already paid for something using your phone anyway. It's literally tapping the screen once or twice. It's also a huge market. There are so many people playing mobile games.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
So of course so many games include these dumbass microtransactions. Even if only a small percentage actually buy them, they'll make bank. That being said, this category is still relatively tame in terms of individual examples of exploitation. I know that sounds quite ominous given that I've gone through some pretty unimpressive monetization models, but believe me when I tell you, it gets worse. Like, holy shit dude, it gets so much worse. This category is also devoid of real-world implications for the most part. I mean, you're unlikely to use Helix credits or a Suicide Squad Battle Pass as a springboard into, say, online gambling. There are countless scholarly articles written on the effects, ethics, and rationale of loot boxes. Some people devote years of their lives researching and studying this very subject. A great number of them focus on the correlation between loot boxes and online gambling. Now, let me get one thing straight. Correlation does not imply causation. When I bring up these studies that find correlations weak or strong between these two phenomena, I'm not trying to tell you that buying loot boxes absolutely does, or even absolutely can lead to problem gambling. However, The fact that this pipeline is so well known and is becoming so well studied should give anyone pause. More importantly, you really don't need to wade through a whole lot of dense scientific information to get to the simple truth that loot boxes are basically gambling anyway. You're paying money for the unpredictable possibility of reward. Girl, that's gambling. In fact, this connection is so clear that many nations and lawmakers are now trying to restrict the use of loot boxes, especially for children, because duh. Let's go back a bit. I know we're talking about video games right now, but Magic the Gathering essentially operates on a loot box system. It's called cardboard crack for a reason. You open a pack and you could get some amazing foil mythic that fits in your deck really well or sells for $50, or you could get a garbage rare that may as well be another token. Not great, right? Well, I'd argue it's actually better than loot boxes in video games. You can resell your cards. You have a physical collection of cards that you now own and can do what you want with. When you open a loot box and get some skins and sprays and titles or whatever, you can't just pass them on to your mate for a $5. Sure, you might be able to put them up on the Steam marketplace or some other unofficial internet marketplace, but sometimes you can't. And if you do, they'll take a cut, so you can't easily reclaim the value you lost in purchasing a bunch of loot boxes to get the item you wanted. Let's talk specifics. We started with MapleStory, where you can open 11 loot boxes with 10 USD. That's 11 chances at pulling something useful from the pool. This is the item pool, by the way. It's huge, and the odds of getting any one specific item are really low. Now, 11 pulls for $10 is great by modern standards, but with so many items, if you're going for something specific, you could end up spending hundreds of dollars before you saw it once. I mean, stating the obvious here, but statistically you could spend thousands and never see it at all given how random chance works, but that's just an extension of the point. It's worth noting that MapleStory is owned by Nexon, who I'm sure many of you have heard of. They have their fair share of controversies, but the most relevant one right now is that they were actually sued for changing the drop rates in MapleStory. One gamer sued them for this scummy, fraudulent, disgusting behaviour, and Nexon received the lightest, most playful of slaps on the wrist. Absolutely pathetic. I can understand the court's reasoning, but they still deserved to be punished much harder. It must feel pretty disheartening to spend so much money and get effectively nothing useful in return. I mean, clearly if you're sufficiently moved to sue them. So how do you make sure that there's still a sense of reward along the way, even if it's not the reward you were hoping for? Let's exchange our cardboard crack for the digitized version. MTG Arena offers card packs in the same way that regular MTG does, just without the need to hold your breath as you enter the store. You're guaranteed a rare or better every time you open a pack, and while you can't then take those cards and sell them in a shoebox with 1,000 others, you do get wild cards. After opening a certain amount of packs, you will get a wild card of varying rarities, which you can then exchange for an actual card of that same rarity. This is a pity timer. It ensures that if you're opening 50 packs hoping for a specific mythic rare, even if you don't get it, after 30 packs opened, you'll get a mythic rare wildcard anyway, so you can grab it regardless. This is better, right? You're strictly getting more bang for your buck, more useful stuff out of your loot boxes. Pity timers are common. You can find a very similar system in Hearthstone, where you'll always get a legendary after opening 40 packs. Hearthstone also has duplicate protection, and the ability to disenchant certain cards for dust, which you can then use to craft the cards you want. That's all fine and great, but it's also pay to win. We'll come back to that later. The important part is that a lot of loot box systems employ pity timers to give players a minor reward along the way, or a greater chance at getting the item they want. Except, it's not to give the players what they want, is it? Pity timers do materially benefit consumers, that's true, but it also plays into the deeper, more insidious psychology behind buying loot boxes in the first place. Sometimes it's not even about what's in the box, it's the act of opening it. It's a little bit exciting, isn't it? There are mysterious rewards in there, some of them might be ultra rare, who knows? There's a flashy, satisfying animation or sound effect, then your spoils are revealed. Oh, it's just some lame common crap and a rare I don't really need. Some people will stop here. Maybe they bought one and they're disappointed. Maybe they got given one for free and they're not interested in spending money. That's great, but they were never the target market. What if, instead, you see the sad sight of the one rare and you can't leave it at that? You were after an epic, actually, or more. So you open another. Nothing. Another. Nothing. Fuck it, let's buy 5. Bam, there's an epic. Maybe it's the one you wanted, maybe not. Doesn't matter, you got something better than a rare, but there are legendaries too, aren't there? You just got a good skin, or card, or spray, and you got a bit of a rush every time you clicked that open button. Why not keep this going? It works in the opposite direction too, by playing on the gambler's fallacy. I've opened 4 loot boxes in a row and got nothing, so this next one must have something good. This won't work on everyone, but for the people it does work on, it just works. Some people don't need any incentive beyond the gratification of opening loot boxes and seeing cool skins pop up to spend hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars. It sounds like a lot of mental gymnastics, but to someone primed to this manner of reasoning, say a gambler, the ingredients are all here. This is already a system ripe for abuse. If you adjust the drop rates just right, if you tune those pity timers to keep people paying and happy, you can hook them. Overwatch was a big name in loot boxes back in the day, and it was partly for the same reason we discussed in the cosmetics section. You want to stand out from the rest of the people playing by showing off your cool skin. Where this logic doesn't follow is in a single player game. You know, a game where you can't show off your cosmetics or gear or legendary orcs to anyone else in-game. Shadow of War launched with microtransactions, including loot boxes. Assassin's Creed was bad enough. This is absolute buffoonery. They were rightfully, mercilessly lampooned for this cartoonish, awful decision. They had essentially created a mobile game, where later portions of the main quest were made artificially harder to incentivize buying these loot boxes for in-game rewards. Except you had to pay full price to get the game in the first place. Naturally, they removed the microtransactions after a while, but that's not much of a victory anymore. Yeah, the loot boxes are gone from that single player game, but that didn't remove loot boxes from any other games, and it sure as hell didn't stop publishers putting microtransactions into single player games in general. Let's go back to Gachapon for a minute. So, Genshin Impact is a small indie game with a limited budget and a modest monthly player base. All this, and they've given us the chance to play it for free. To offset this incredibly generous offer, they've implemented a small number of cheap, very optional loot boxes. Now that we've all had a hearty chuckle at my blatant lies, we can talk about how ridiculous this game's monetization is. Of course it is. Use your brain, viewer. They had to recoup this $700 million somehow. Genshin Impact loot boxes are called banners, and opening one is called wishing. You buy a wish with fates, which are bought with Prismogems, which you get by exchanging Genesis crystals, which you can buy with real money. You know how I said one in-game or premium currency obfuscates how much you're actually spending? This is a nightmare to research and talk about. Do you know how much Genshin I had to play? It actually wasn't that much, but this is still confusing as fuck, and I'm the one making the video. Basically, once you get to higher levels, you'll need certain characters and weapons to keep progressing. Not only that, you'll need 4 or 5 star characters and weapons. See, there are 3 tiers: 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star. Don't ask me why it starts at 3, I don't know. When you open a loot box or wish upon a banner, whether it be a standard banner or a special, seasonal or event banner, you get an item. Depending on the banner, the pool changes. It could be weapons only, it could be characters only, but you get an item. Naturally, the most common pull is 3 stars, with 4 stars being rarer and 5 stars being rarer still. Now, there are pity timers, so every 10 wishes you're guaranteed a 4-star, and every 90 wishes you're guaranteed a 5-star. Is it just me, or is that pretty fucking high? There are also what they call soft pity timers, where the chance of pulling a 5-star is increased after around 75. Again, this is just so damn many that I can barely believe it. So, how much does each wish cost? Well, it's never really that simple, is it? If you want to get a wish from a fate, from 160 Primogems, from 160 Genesis crystals, well, you can't just buy 160, because of course you can't. You can get 300 for $8, which would be 2 pulls. If you wanted 10 shots at a 5-star prize, you'll need to spend $30. As you can see, this is nowhere near enough to guarantee you the good stuff from that pity timer. Even if you spend over $160, you still only get 50 pulls. $166. And you won't even trigger the 5-star soft pity timer. I feel like a broken record doing this bit, but here we go. Yes, you can earn some of these through just playing the game. Yes, it will take you a good long while. No, I don't think it matters. that predatory pricing is still just as bad, the mechanics are still just as addictive, the whales are just as exploited, and it's made $1 billion a year until 2024, where it made a pathetic $710 million. The existence of free players does not make this model any less absurd. From the layers of obfuscation to the near pay-to-win incentives, this is nearly as bad as it gets. If you play this game and enjoy it and don't have to spend a ridiculous amount of money, that's great. I am genuinely glad. Look, it's a big, pretty world with some fun, casual gameplay from what I can see, but it really doesn't excuse those loot boxes. I haven't even mentioned the blessing of the Welkin Moon. That sentence will be gibberish to some people, so let me explain. For $5, you can get an instant 300 Genesis crystals, then a 30-day rewards track that gives you 90 Primo Gems each day. That's a pull every 2 days and then some, provided you do log in every day to claim your progress rewards. If you don't, those Primo Gems are gone forever, despite the fact that you paid for them. Cool, a lot of gems for a small amount of money. This is undeniably the best value for your money if you want Primo Gems. People online even recommend new players get this bundle to avoid the predatory pricing of the gem packs Genshin calls top-ups. It's still just as bad as all of the other payment options and worse than some. It's a small amount of money, which is great for the people who then stop spending, but for some, it can act as a justifier for spending more money through the sunk cost fallacy. It also explicitly encourages you to log in and play every single day, encourages you to form the habit of playing Genshin Impact, even, dare I say it, encourages addictive patterns of behavior. This might sound like pearl clutching when I say it in a vacuum, but these are all tactics that designers think about when creating these microtransactions. You might not think about them when you're buying, but I promise you, people thought about them when they made them. I know that last part strayed a little bit off topic, but Genshin and other gacha games are all built on loot boxes at their core. That's why they're called gacha games. Unfortunately, as much as people complain and protest the inclusions of loot boxes in just about anything, people still buy them. There's no stopping a small subsection of the gaming community slurping up this loot box slop like there's no tomorrow, and that's without any tangible or monetary incentive. So, what if instead of just buying anime waifus, there was an actual monetary incentive? You all know the game I've avoided talking about until now. When I brought up the link between online gambling and loot boxes, it's probably the first one that came to your mind, and most likely the one that many of these researchers were looking at when they drew the connections themselves. CSGO, and now CS2, has been offering weapons cases for over 10 years. You can earn them for free, or you can purchase them from the Steam Marketplace, or other shady websites. To open them, you'll need to buy keys. You can do this from the game itself, where each key is $2.50, or much like the cases, you can buy them from Steam Marketplace or other shady websites. Key prices vary, usually upwards, when you're not purchasing them through the game menu. Let's cut to the chase. What's in the box? Weapon skins. The regular guns and knives look like trash, so naturally, if you want to get aces every round, you better get a sweet paint job. These skins do nothing for you mechanically, unless impressing your opponents counts, but they carry some incredibly hefty price tags. An AK Serpent might get you a couple of grand. An M4A4 Howl might even get you 6. Apparently, if you have a blue gem Karambit, you'll get offers of over $1 million and still turn it down? What the fuck? I'll back up for a second. Obviously, these prices are from third-party markets. Valve isn't sitting here buying back your Counter-Strike skins for a cool mill. It's other players, collectors, traders, and gamblers who are spending thousands. Did I just say gamblers? Past the financial incentive of pulling a really valuable skin to just sell on the marketplace, which is bad enough and encourages plenty of players to waste hundreds or thousands on keys, CSGO jumped the shark and went right to literal gambling. Obviously, Valve is against it, but that doesn't help at all in curbing the phenomenon, nor does it stop skin gambling being advertised and freely open to under 18s. How is this legal? Well, it's actually through a little something that we in the industry call bullshit. You see, Valve maintains that the skins have no monetary value. True in a figurative sense. They're just pixels that confer no gameplay advantage. but clearly and blatantly false in every other sense, because if you pull a dragon lore, you can absolutely make bank. Now, I won't rehash every single detail because plenty of other people have covered it quite extensively, but suffice it to say that there were a lot of controversies, and after some attempted cracking down on these betting, roulette, and straight-up theft sites, not a whole lot has genuinely changed. The concerns about match fixing still exist, and not only are there barely any measures in place to stop under-18s participating in online gambling, these deplorable ghouls are actually advertising online gambling to literal children. I thought that after the T. Martin Syndicate and Josh OG drama, where they forgot to disclose ownership in the gambling sites they were promoting, that we all collectively agreed to stop advertising to kids and mention our shady investments. Just me? Seriously, influencers are still shilling these websites to their audiences of young, impressionable teenagers. Some betting sites even sponsor professional teams. Pardon my French again, but sacre bleu, this shit is fucked beyond belief. What's more, these sites are completely rife with scams. Since you can't officially cash out your skins, if you want to make aforementioned bank, you have to go through third-party marketplaces. This means that people can, and do, set up fake sites or exchanges for the express purpose of taking your skins or money. They lie to you in sponsorships. They lie about their odds. They sometimes just straight up jack your shit. Valve can't step in and force them to give your skins back because they are ostensibly not involved. Legally, they can't be. They still profit from the demand though, so they have next to no incentive to shut any of these disgusting practices down. Even children getting sucked into online gambling gives them a financial boost, so they don't really give a shit about that either. You have to understand, this is on top of the copy-pasted, predatory, addiction-baiting practices that already underpin the weapon case system. It's bad enough in Genshin Impact when you're pulling a few dozen times for the perfect waifu, but here you could make life-changing money if you just get that AWP skin or knife in the next case. Artificial scarcity means that older cases, with the most valuable skins, drop less frequently, driving up those high prices even further. Even when you do pull a good skin, you have to worry about its condition. Yeah, there are different conditions for the pixel skins for your video game guns, like grading magic cards, but those are, real. I don't know if I've fully conveyed just how ridiculous Counter-Strike loot boxes are. I hope I have, but I almost feel like I've gone through so many objectionable dot points that it's a bit numbing. With everything else that's going on, it really doesn't matter how much the loot boxes cost, does it? After all, $2.50 doesn't seem like a lot for a pool, but the odds of getting anything good are so low, and there are no pity timers. I don't want to leave you with the impression that this is the only example of children being exposed to and encouraged to buy loot boxes. Obviously, this is one of the most direct pipelines, but kids play Overwatch and Genshin too. Hell, even Roblox has loot boxes in some custom games. It has a lot worse than that too, but that's not what this video is about. Paid loot boxes are designed to exploit all gamers, not just kids, but I find it especially wretched to effectively condition young people to gamble. I know I said earlier that correlation doesn't equal causation. There is no definitive, verifiable evidence that conclusively says loot box buying will lead you to online gambling. That being said, a longitudinal study by Brooks and Clark suggests that there is at least a predictive indication, a real risk factor that indicates people who engage in loot box buying might be more likely to engage in online gambling. Intuitively, we know that this makes sense, but it doesn't really make a difference, does it? It'd be foolish to think that even if this isn't causation, that it's actually good for children to be spending money on gambling in video games, or mechanics that are indistinguishable from gambling. It's so easy to see how people with addictive personalities, or even just people who are emotionally invested in the games that offer loot boxes, could end up sinking absurd amounts of money into them. There's a reason Genshin Impact has made billions. We've covered enough about loot boxes already, but it's worth noting that there are other models with varying levels of exploitation baked into them. Some loot box systems offer duplicate protection, like Hearthstone, where if you pull a card, you won't pull it again, so you don't have to worry about getting 5 copies of a shit legendary and no copies of the good ones. Others, however, like so-called complete gacha systems, are batshit insane. You have to pull every single item of a specific tier or rarity before you can move on to the next tier. Unsurprisingly, these are now illegal. Loot boxes operate on FOMO, logical fallacies, addiction, and whales. Let me put it this way. If loot boxes didn't make magnitudes of money more than just offering the skins and items for set prices, why would they exist? The EU has been trying to crack down on loot boxes, calling them what they are for years. Publishers are trying to resist and skirt these regulations just as fervently, inserting mechanics or timers or disclaimers to exploit legal loopholes and keep the cash flowing into their grubby little pockets. I looked over a lot of research in this section, and you will have seen plenty of names of articles and authors flash up on the screen, but I feel it's important to acknowledge just how much time and effort has been put into examining the effect of loot boxes. Thank you to all of the hardworking researchers who have put this information together. Anyway, here's a short palate cleanser before we go into more rage-inducing nonsense. Alright, let's talk about pay to win. Just imagine it. You come home from a long day at work. You sit down to relax and play an online game. Maybe it's a card game. Maybe it's an FPS. It doesn't matter. You boot it up, queue into matchmaking, and a minute later, you're rage quitting because some whale has just whipped your ass with their deck or perk or weapon they paid $20 for that's better than anything you could get for free. Disheartening. Some might even say infuriating. We can see pay to win all the way back in MapleStory. How nice to know that it's not a new concept. MapleStory may not have implemented these features on launch, but there are direct ways for you to pay money and get better items, or more XP for your character. Pretty cut and dry. If we go even further back in time to another example I've used before, then Magic the Gathering is also pay to win. If anything, it's more pay to win than MapleStory. If you can't afford some packs or starter decks, you can't play at all, and some of the most powerful cards come with ridiculously hefty price tags. You can be as good as you want, but if you don't have good cards, then you'll be comboed down to 0 life faster than you can ask what the fuck the 5th keyword was on that quad color card. That being said, Magic the Gathering was always transparent about this. There's a buy-in cost in the form of physical goods that you own and then can resell, like we went through before. Video games have evolved into this mess of pay-to-win mechanics. Pay to win has no innocent beginnings. Unlike cosmetics, which are still sometimes to this day used in harmless ways to fund free games or pay for convenience, which is sometimes the same, pay to win is an explicitly anti-player practice. Loot boxes are anti-consumer in the way that they exist to drain money from players, but pay to win strictly makes your game worse. It causes an imbalance between free players and paid players that can make it frustrating for the former, leading many to either quit playing or become that which they once swore to destroy. It goes without saying that this is by design. If you pit those poor moochers against the Giga Chad whales, maybe they'll see the error of their ways and dip into mum's wallet to join the winners club, and you can make a quick buck. It's intentionally making the experience of playing your game worse unless you pay to unlock fun. Now, look, this is an oversimplification and a little bit facetious, but it is true. While you can have fun playing pay-to-win games without spending a cent, there's no denying that you're at a distinct disadvantage. Games that include pay-to-win are built around pay-to-win. Systems are designed to frustrate you, to encourage you to pay money, to extract the maximum amount possible from each player. Let's go back to Hearthstone, a game that I play semi-regularly, a game that I enjoy, but one that I will happily admit is pay-to-win. I don't pay money to play Hearthstone. Hearthstone released in 2014 as a free-to-play game, with some microtransactions in the form of buying card packs and adventures as they came along. So, this is pay to win, but it's a lot more gentle than some. I said it earlier, but you've always been able to disenchant cards for dust and craft the cards you want. I've bought packs in the past, but not many, and I didn't really have to for a long time because I earned a fair amount of gold just by playing anyway. I would use that gold to buy packs or arena entries to earn more gold. You get the idea. The game would be better if it wasn't pay to win, but it's a digital collectible card game, so I get the premise. Unfortunately, as time went on, Blizzard actually decided that regular pay to win wasn't quite earning enough hundreds of millions. These days, when I boot up Hearthstone, I'm usually playing Battlegrounds. It slaps. For the first little while, Battlegrounds was completely free, with a battle pass being introduced that increased your hero choices. Yep, that's pay to win. But you could buy it with gold. So if you had some gold lying around, you didn't have to spend a cent. Blizzard decided this was still not enough and took out the ability to buy this pass with gold. Now there's a new premium currency that you have to buy with actual money, which you can then use to buy the battle pass. Now the only people who have access to 4 hero choices instead of 2, and more hero rerolls at the start of games, are the ones who forked over $20. Also, there are actually 2 tiers of Battlegrounds Pass, just to deepen that class divide and give you more ways to spend money. I don't know, man, it's kind of fucked to make your game more and more pay to win as time goes on. Yes, $20 isn't much, and yes, I still enjoy the game, but I'm not going to pretend the system wasn't objectively better when there was no divide between paying and free players. This is almost a microcosm of the whole timeline. Over Hearthstone's decade of life, it's gradually introduced more features, but also more anti-consumer bullshit. And after all, why not? They were making money before, and every time they bring in more methods of monetization, they work. I understand that to keep a card game like this going, you have to eventually, release more cards, but there's no justification for the premium currency apart from greed. You're incentivizing your players to play less and pay more. Let's wash our hands of Blizzard temporarily, just like the several hundred employees they laid off last year. Pay to win has infected PC and console games, but it has absolutely ruined mobile gaming. We spoke about how many mobile games are filled with ads or artificial time blocks to force you to spend money on conveniences, but the incentive of competitive multiplayer pushes this over the edge. There are countless examples, but let's just look at Clash Royale, shall we? Made by Supercell, the same people who made Clash of Clans, another pay-to-win mobile game. Clash Royale really has it all. Premium currency, cards, chests, arena packs, special customized limited offers, battle passes, your parents' disappointment, everything a real gamer deserves. You can earn this stuff in-game for free and so on and so forth, but this is clearly pay to win. It would take ages to earn it in-game, and to be honest, even if it only took you a week to get a similar level, it still wouldn't be great. As a free player, you would still be getting matched against paid players to try and entice you to spend. You would still have the frustration of time gating to entice you to unlock things faster. You would still have the store sitting right there with these personalized offers to entice you to be competitive, or to take advantage of such great value. It's not a week's worth of difference though. It's closer to months of grinding versus opening your wallet a few times. Not bad enough? Let's look at Dungeon Keeper then. Not the original, the 2014 controversy generator. This is where it becomes incredibly obvious that many examples of pay for convenience are essentially weaponized by greedy publishers to become pay to win. If you don't pay for those conveniences, you simply won't win. Here's a quote from the senior producer. "We didn't design this as a pay-to-play or pay-to-win game. It is designed as a free-to-play title where players can commit time or money towards their play experience, and every piece of content in the game is accessible without having to spend a dime." Time gates were apparently so bad that the game was nearly unplayable without spending, with grinds so long that the facade of offering free alternatives was completely destroyed. In fact, while you're waiting for things to happen, you can't even play the game. So it's not free to play at all. It's free to download and watch nothing happening. That's like advertising a free concert but asking for ticket money at the theater door. Sure, I can stand outside and maybe I'll hear some of the songs, but I'm not really at the concert for free, am I? It got so bad that EA admitted the game's economy was wrecked, but they did also sort of imply that the players were the ones who were wrong for not engaging with the game properly, so it's not a great apology all in all. Unsurprisingly, you can't even play the game anymore, and it's remembered as an awful attempt to capitalize on a well-known and well-loved title by utterly butchering it. And it's so blatant too. They couldn't even pretend they were making a game first. This model is infuriating. Not only because it's transparently attempting to extract money from you, not just because it's taken over the mobile marketplace and even crept into MMO or other gaming spaces, not just because so many people defend it on the basis of payment not being a strict requirement. I mostly just think it's a giant shame because by including pay to win in a multiplayer game, you're making it a more frustrating, less fun experience on purpose. That's the whole idea. You frustrate the free players, put them up against paid players, make them either quit, grind for an unreasonable amount of time, or open that wallet. How completely antithetical to the main reason gamers play games in the first place. Hearthstone is fun. I love card games, but I wish there wasn't an artificial divide between free players and paid players. Dungeon Keeper was a beloved franchise that could have been revived for good, not puppeteered for greed. These practices don't just discourage and exploit gamers, they actually kill games. They turn what could have been fun, creative experiences into single-minded vehicles for cash, happy to trade the most fundamental pillars of game design for a quick buck. It's also clear that games can make money without using this free-to-play model. I see a lot of people defending freemium games because they're getting this fun experience to way more people without having a price tag. They're accessible to the masses now because they're free. How generous. Newsflash, pal, if the publishers are raking in hundreds of millions a year, they didn't make it free out of generosity. Yes, more people technically can play Clash Royale because it's free. I guarantee the player base would remain more consistent and the reception would be better if it was a one-off payment and then an even playing field. Yeah, but if you couldn't pay to skip the grind or buy cards or chests, then it would take everyone so long to get high levels, then everyone would suffer. Okay, straw man I've just constructed, how about the developers engage their creativity for a few hours and come up with a system that doesn't gargle balls? Without pay to win, developers have to come up with satisfying progression systems and actually entertaining gameplay, otherwise no one will play their game. Ergo, removing pay to win would strictly make games better. Not that it matters. People don't put microtransactions into their games to make them better, they do it to make money. That's the goal. Not memorable stories, great games, or genuine fun, just piles and piles of money. Just massive hordes of gold and treasure. Wait, hold on. Do you hear that? Diablo Immortal is one of the most disappointing events in gaming history. Not just because it took a beloved franchise and gutted it for cash, which it did, not just because it combines all of the previous monetization tactics we've talked about and then some, which it does, not just because it's the most predatory, exploitative delivery of microtransactions I've ever seen, which it is, it's because it fucking worked. Blizzard threw slop straight onto our phone screens, held out their grubby little rat bastard hands, and we passed them hundreds of millions of dollars. There's a reason this game has an entire section of its own. It's the worst offender in every category. It may as well be a repeated cutscene with a QuickTime event consisting of you inputting your credit card details. Now, I'm not qualified to go into excruciating detail on this game, but thankfully it's not necessary. Josh Strife Hayes already has a fantastic video called The Immoral Design of Diablo Immortal that covers the awful monetization in this game far better than I ever could. If you haven't watched that video, go do so. Hell, pause this one right now and come back. The main theme is that no game has ever tried so greedily, so insidiously, nor so brazenly to take so many of your hard-earned bald eagle buckaroos. Diablo Immortal starts off like any other Diablo game, albeit dumbed down for the mobile experience. You kill monsters, you use flashy skills, you find good gear to replace your bad gear with. It's almost too easy at the start. I have no doubt this is on purpose so that later on, when the game becomes unreasonably difficult, the contrast is bigger. The incentive to pay is larger. Then they swoop in, easing you into the plethora of ways you can pay to pay. No, you didn't mishear me. The more you pay, the more opportunities you have to pay again. Absolutely despicable. It's genuinely impressive how over-designed this game is from a monetization standpoint. It feels like the culmination of decades of market research, taking the absolute worst of every game that came before it and distilling it into the perfectly shitty experience. I won't harp on too much about things that Josh Strife Hayes has already covered, so I think I'll just point out some truly ghoulish pieces of information. To fully max out a character, it takes 36 fully upgraded 5-star gems, 6 for each socketable gear slot. The drop rates are incredibly low, and while I don't know how many people have or even can actually spend enough money on legendary crests to go through the thousands of drops necessary to obtain all 36, the costs stretch the implications of the word exorbitant. So, many of you will have seen articles floating around a few years ago suggesting that it costs 100 grand or so to max a character. These figures are somewhat corroborated by player JT is All Business, who was the first to hit max resonance. except that another player has apparently spent over 150 grand. That's a pretty huge difference. That's like a good new car's difference to make numbers go up more on your video game character. Now, those numbers will change for everyone, because it's RNG based. Luckily, we can do a little demonstration. This is a handy Rift reward simulator, built by Reddit user BuzzyCat. Thanks BuzzyCat, this is absolutely brilliant. Using the in-game drop rates, we can go through the process of buying the legendary crests necessary to get the legendary gem drops. Every spin is $25 US, which, again, is about the price of an indie game, or a good meal, or countless other more useful things. As you can see, we've already spent a fair bit, and we're not even close. Thankfully, BuzzyCat included this wonderful button here, so I'm just gonna click this and let it ride. Now what you're seeing here is just the cost of one 5-star gem. Don't forget, you need 36 of these bad boys to max a character. This is already a used car. Let's keep going, shall we? There you have it. 36 5-star gems for the bargain price of $158,225 US. So this is just a simulator, and it's all RNG based. That is to say, this isn't necessarily a representative number. If you're extremely lucky, you might get away with paying half of this. If you're extremely unlucky, you might be forking over a 2-bedroom house worth of cash for a mobile game. $158,000 is already a fucking deposit and then some, and Blizzard is asking you to throw it away on a mobile game. So I actually ran this simulator a bunch of times already and got an average, so let's plug this latest figure in. If these drop rates and conversion rates are correct, then the average player would be spending approximately $155,903.75 on their legendary gems. How on earth did we make it here? Achaea Dreams of Divine Lands would have been laughed off the face of the planet for this in 97. Todd would have had to go back to the chess club if he tried this with Oblivion. I feel I have to remind you as well, this is only the gems. This is not any other resources, battle passes, cosmetics, gem upgrades, or premium currencies. This is just a figure for the gems themselves. This feels like the final raid boss of microtransactions, the colossus that, once defeated, will end the whole practice forever, but it's verifiably not. It made over $500 million in its first year, and is still bringing in over $5 million USD a month. I think it's time that we moved on. For what it's worth, fuck you, Blizzard. Fuck you, whoever designed Diablo Immortal. This is gross. I cannot believe I actually bought Diablo 4 like a dickhead. And holy shit, capitalism has really got out of control, hasn't it? I mentioned in my DLC video, but it's not as simple as being able to blame the consumers for rewarding these scummy tactics. Voting with your wallet is an individualistic stance that may sound logical and even easy, but it hides some major flaws. Firstly, it's all good and well for you and I to vote with our wallets by only buying games that don't do these things, or simply not buying microtransactions, but we are being outvoted at every turn by whales. If dollars are votes, then the tiny percentage of whale spenders are always going to represent the majority in the poll. Another problem is that if you're the type of person who doesn't spend on games like this, or just doesn't spend on microtransactions in general, that's great, but they're not designed for you. There's no data to be analysed or techniques to be refined from seeing where and why you spent your money, because you didn't. All of the information designers and publishers have relates to maximising the spend of people that do pay. So when their ridiculous, outlandishly expensive options work, that's just positive feedback in the form of monetary gain. It's also counterintuitive. If the prevailing narrative is that players are voting with their wallets, even if the vast majority of players actually are, and they refuse to spend even a single cent, the whales give plenty of ammunition to the publishers to turn around and say, well, the votes are in, looks like predatory monetization is what everyone wants. And finally, it's just kind of a dick move sometimes. It fundamentally misattributes the blame of the matter. Why is it the consumer's fault when the publishers are the ones who came up with these god-awful strategies? Why is it the consumer's fault when they're the ones being exploited? It's kind of victim blaming. Yeah, it encourages these giant corporations to be even greedier, but you can't just deflect criticism away from them for their initial greed. Sure, no one had to buy the microtransactions in Diablo 4, but Blizzard also didn't have to use them in the first place. Sorry to go off on a tiny tangent here, but it's a very neoliberal-esque argument to me. Oh, you drive a petrol car? I guess you mustn't care very much about climate change then. Oh, you buy things from Amazon and have a Disney Plus subscription? I guess you mustn't care very much about the evils of capitalism then. Bro, just because I'm forced to participate in the system doesn't mean the system isn't shit. Do we blame sick people in the US for paying into the predatory healthcare system? Fuck no. Of course, I'm not actually trying to one-to-one compare video games to life-saving medical treatment, but my point is that the people being exploited shouldn't be blamed for the system that exploits them. If we examine the timeline and refer back to the title of the video, we can see such a brutal progression from companies testing the waters with conveniences and cosmetics to asking people to drop their life savings on a single character in Diablo Immortal. So I guess if we're going to ask, what now? The answer would probably be, it's never really going to change. Don't get me wrong, the current landscape of gaming is pretty great. We have fantastic single-player games coming out all the time. We have multiplayer games that respect our time and money. However, the people trying to wring more money out of mobile gamers and whales are going to keep squeezing, and they're going to squeeze harder, more creatively, because it works. Gacha games, pay to win, Diablo Immortal, these things make bank, so they're not simply gonna go away without regulation. I don't really know what regulation on some of these things would even look like, but banning loot boxes would be a bloody great start. I know there's no stopping some things, so I guess it's time to bring up my honorable mention that I didn't end up slotting into the video earlier. If Diablo Immortal is taking home the award for most bullshit microtransactions, Star Citizen is the runner-up. Better luck next time. Star Citizen is a bit of a joke in many circles, and for fair reason. The game has raised over $850 million over 12 years, and it isn't even out yet. In fact, it's not even in beta yet. I'm not fully convinced Squadron 42 really exists, so I won't even bother with that. The things you can buy in Star Citizen, man, there's something else. It's a game about flying spaceships around, so of course you can buy spaceships with real money. Some packs and ships are actual thousands of dollars. Motherfucker, that's a macro transaction. There's one pack, the Legatus pack, that costs 48,000 USD. That's 72,000 Australian. I could buy 2 whole-ass real-life cars. Like, good cars. Also, you have to have already spent money to be in the Chairman's Club to buy this pack in the first place. What are we doing? Like, just... What are we doing? These are the current ships, mind you. They're asking me to drop a good yearly salary on some fake spaceships just to not even get future content. Absolutely despicable. Not even Genshin Impact would ask me to spend 50 grand at once. If you spent some money and you feel like you've got its worth and enjoyment from this alpha build, then that's great, but there is absolutely no denying from anyone with their heads above sand level that the game is unfinished. The promises have all been broken, the justification for asking and taking thousands of dollars from players is thin and slimy, and the primary goal for CIG is not to finish the game, but to continue milking the players they have left until they can no longer do so. It's insane that monetization has come this far. To bring us back on topic, another problem I have with deflecting blame from publishers and towards consumers for engaging with microtransactions is that it doesn't solve the problem I mentioned earlier, which is that they're just making games worse. As a gamer, I want better games. Fewer microtransactions would force people to make better games if they wanted to make money. It's that simple. Imagine more Baldur's Gate 3s and fewer Clash Royales. God, that would be so good. I just want more Baldur's Gate 3, really. This game makes my heart happy. Ultimately, it's kind of hard to know what to do about these situations. Of course, I think it is helpful to boycott certain games and practices, even if it doesn't dissuade some people from spending. But unfortunately, I just don't know if that's gonna work to force publishers to change their tunes. I hope it will, but it probably won't. The best we can realistically do from the comfort of our homes is to draw attention to the most awful examples. Whether that's pushing for regulation in the industry via the way of online petitions or just some good old-fashioned bullying. Remember that Battlefront 2 Reddit post? That shit worked pretty well. What about that quote from the EA CEO, John Riccitello, about paying for a reload in Battlefield? When you are 6 hours into playing Battlefield and you run out of ammo in your clip and we ask you for $1 to reload, you're really not that price sensitive at that point in time. That's gross, predatory, anti-fun, and makes no fucking sense. However, it's at least easy to lambast because it's so detached from reality. This is an easy case to convince people to back down from, but the more accepted practices continue to be implemented, evolved, and ramped up because they know they've got away with forms of it before. This is how we got Diablo Immortal. The future of microtransactions is likely to look even more predatory. Yeah, they probably won't be asking you to fork over 100k at once, but what if they get AI involved? What if they collate all of your data and get AI to target you with specific microtransactions designed for your player and buying behaviors? It might sound paranoid, but I promise you there are people looking into how to implement this. It might not work on you, but it'll work gangbusters on plenty of others. I feel bad that my conclusion is basically to say things are bad and I'm not sure what to do about it. I feel bad that I don't have any concrete answers about where things are headed, how we can influence things in a positive way, but I'm just a guy making YouTube videos for fun. I don't have a massive audience, I don't have influence. All I know is games are supposed to be fun, and I don't know about you guys, but I think interrupting the experience to beg for more money, or worse, designing entire systems around maximizing profits is pretty fucking far from fun. As I said, it's not all doom and gloom. Larian, From Software, Santa Monica, Hazelight, CD Projekt Red, these are all studios bringing out fantastic, high-quality games. Mostly, without any microtransactions. There are plenty more out there, so definitely support those. Also, keep taking the piss out of people asking 78k for imaginary spaceships for a game still in alpha. Sometimes it works, and it's very funny in the process. If I could leave you with a final recommendation, it would be this. The next time a greedy publisher asks you for a hefty chunk of your hard-earned money for a trivial in-game reward, just turn it off, go outside, and touch some grass. That's completely free. For now.